Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Fastamai, good evening and welcome to Update, your roundup of today's key news stories from the Isle of Man. Coming up in the next half hour, bus disruptions, more cancellations were threatened today. What is really going on, and have you been caught up in any of the delays? Also tonight, zombie knife ban with the UK cracking down on these dangerous weapons, what's happening over here, and a heartwarming gesture. We'll share the story of a generous Manx resident who's given a local charity a major financial lift. Plus, if you're on the road tonight, we'll have the latest updates to keep you moving. And as ever, we'd like to hear from you. You can text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First, let's join Dave for a roundup of today's main news headlines.
Tonight's steam packet sailing to Heysham could be in jeopardy. The ferry company's warning the crossing could be delayed or even cancelled due to worsening weather conditions. It's due to depart Douglas at 7:45 and return at 6 tomorrow morning. A decision will be made by 6 o'clock at the latest. All other sailings are showing as leaving on time. The road between the St Mark's and Clanna Road crossroads remains closed following a traffic collision. Emergency services are warning motorists to avoid the area, with police expecting the closed section to be shut to vehicles until at least 7 o'clock. The Department of Home Affairs says it will be consulting on both its offensive weapons and firearms legislation in the coming months. It says blades over 8 inches with a serrated edge, known as zombie knives, are now banned in England and Wales. The move in the UK came into force this week. The Isle of Man men's darts and cricket teams and Manx under-21 netball squad are facing their latest test in international competition during the next hour. At the Cartama Oval in Spain, the men's T10 cricket squad are targeting a 5th straight win tonight. At the European Cricket Championships, they face Slovenia at 5:30. Meanwhile, the netball squad have just started their second match of the World Youth Cup qualifiers taking place in Cardiff. They're taking on Wales. And the Isle of Man's also in competition right now in the World Darts Federation. They're currently playing Italy. They're 8-1 down. Earlier in the day, they went down 9-1 to England in their opening group game. Elsewhere, the Israeli military says it will enter enemy territory in Lebanon. The IDF's chief of the General Staff says troops will enter villages that Hezbollah has allegedly prepared as large military outposts. So Keir Starmer is telling Britons in Lebanon that the time to leave is now. British troops have been sent to Cyprus in case they're needed to help with evacuations. And rail workers in the UK have voted to accept new pay offers. Members of the RMT union are backing a one-year rise of 4.5% at Network Rail. Those are the Update News headlines. The next bulletin is at 6.
Thank you very much, Dave. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. It's not brilliant tonight, I'm afraid. Rain heavy at times throughout this evening and overnight. The fresh easterly wind will continue to increase to strong. Minimum temperatures, although that's pretty irrelevant, will be around 11 Celsius. And there are going to be further outbreaks of rain tomorrow, only gradually petering out later on in the day and early evening. Strong northeast winds and a top temperature tomorrow of 13, which is feeling much colder than it has recently. Mainly dry though, with sunny spells on Friday, but there will be a risk of showers later in the day. And as we know, there is a question mark at the moment over the Manxman sailing to Heysham a little bit later. We'll bring you the very latest as we get it. Sunset this evening will be at 8 minutes past 7. Sunrise tomorrow morning, 12 minutes past 7.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
See the island like you've never seen it before on an incredible chauffeur-driven trike tour. A unique way to make memories that will last a lifetime. Gift vouchers available too. See iomtriketours.com for details and booking.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
Your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
Firestone Rubber Roof Shop for one-piece flat roofing systems. No joins, no leaks. We also line commercial box gutters in one piece up to 60 metres with a 20-year written warranty against leakage. Call Rubber Roof Shop on 49667.
You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. It's just coming up to 5 past 5. So there remains continued uncertainty over bus timetables, with Busvannon now warning it'll be making daily updates with regards to which services could be disrupted. I'm joined now by Christian in the studio. And first, Christian, just give us a brief rundown of what's been happening.
Well, recently we've seen bus services quite heavily affected, and this became prevalent towards the beginning of this month when 19 routes were called off because of staffing issues. Since then, like you say, we're now getting daily updates from Busvannon about which services it thinks are likely to be at risk. For example, in the past couple of weeks, we've seen handfuls of routes sporadically categorised as at risk. Last weekend, there was a long list of them, which were all affected too. Yesterday, again, a handful of them were susceptible to being disrupted, and today there were 8 in total that could have been called off. We know now that Busvannon did manage to sort them out and they're operating as normal. But I suppose for those who do use public transport, these daily updates of possible cancellation don't give a great deal of confidence in whether you can get from A to B on time or at all.
Let's come back to that in a moment. First, do we know why the timetable is suffering all this disruption?
Well, Busvannon is saying it's due to staff shortages and sickness. It's previously told us, particularly on weekends, the timetable needs drivers to work overtime, and it simply doesn't have enough drivers to operate the full service. It does say that there's lots of vacancies, a number of long-term absentees, and also a recruitment campaign underway, but ultimately it's saying it needs more staff before it can run the service reliably.
Let's just come back to that notion of reliability. I guess if you rely on public transport to get around the island, this situation is far from ideal.
Well, exactly. We've seen comments on social media where people are complaining that they've been put in awkward situations, whether that's getting to the airport, going to or returning from work, or even tourists have been in the comments saying that they're visiting as foot passengers and were expecting to use the bus network, but that was seemingly not an option anymore. We have contacted the DOI and Busvannon repeatedly to ask what's prompted this to start in the few weeks. Initially, it was suggested that a number of staff had suddenly walked out. Busvannon did respond to those comments and said that was not the case. But now, though, anecdotally, and we do have to stress that, we're hearing that an overtime rate used to be available, but that's since been withdrawn, so there's less incentive for drivers to consider doing overtime. Of course, we will put that question to them if we do get an opportunity to speak, but that's effectively where we're up to, and we'll be expecting more daily updates of services at risk tomorrow.
Christian, thank you very much indeed. And as Christian said there, we have repeatedly asked for an interview on this because we know it is something that is causing concern. So as soon as we get that official comment, we will bring it to you. 8 minutes past 5. The Department of Home Affairs says it'll be consulting on both its offensive weapons and firearms legislation in the coming months. Now, this comes as blades over 8 inches with a serrated edge, known as zombie knives, are now banned in England and Wales in legislation which came into force this week. Siobhan Fletcher reports.
The UK Home Secretary is pledging to crack down on knife crime by bringing in new laws to cut online sales of dangerous knives. Yvette Cooper praised Pooja Kanda, who's campaigned for a change in legislation since her son Ronan was murdered in 2022. Ms Cooper told the Labour Party conference that changes will be made to protect others.
We will make it a mission for our whole country to halve knife crime in a decade, and yes, this Labour government will pass Ronan's Law, a ban on ninja swords.
Well, another mother whose 16-year-old son was stabbed to death with a zombie knife believes a ban introduced yesterday is a start in tackling knife crime, but is concerned that youth still carry them. Hayley Ryle believes young people need to be part of the solution.
Something's got to change, and if these youths and kids don't start changing, the older generation especially, and teaching the young ones that this isn't the way forward, then nothing is going to change. We need them to help us.
Official figures in the UK show knife crime rose there by 7% last year in England and Wales, compared with 2022, driven in part by a rise in knife point robberies. The UK government plans to also ban ninja swords in the future. Well, Manx Radio asked the government here if the island is to follow suit. A spokesperson told us that knife crime is exceptionally low here compared to the UK, with incidents usually involving standard household knives. However, they added it is already an offence to carry a bladed article or offensive weapon in public without a lawful authority or valid reason to do so, regardless of the type of blade. The DHA confirmed it will be consulting on both its offensive weapons and firearms legislation in the coming months, and that consultation will gather views on potential modernisation, flexibility, and to ensure our laws remain robust and effective in protecting the Manx public.
Siobhan Fletcher reporting, and as soon as that consultation is available, we will, of course, post the links for you on the Manx Radio website. It's just gone 5:10. Government needs to bite the bullet and tackle the island's infrastructure before committing to any population growth. The chair of the Housing and Communities Board has been giving his views on Manx Radio. The Island Plan document published by government wants to increase the Isle of Man's population in the next 15 years, but David Ashford says other areas need investment before that will ever be possible.
As a former chair of planning, I would say planning does need to be looked at. My view in relation to planning is that the Town and Country, and this is a personal view, the Town and Country Planning Act is 25 years old this year. It's been added to with various different policies and regulations over that 25 years. I think we do need to take a deep breath, look at the planning system and see, are there particular things that are backing up. I don't think we see the level of objection that they see sometimes in the UK, particularly the organised level of objection they see in the UK. I don't think we see that. My experience during my time as chairman of planning is you had one or two maybe close neighbours who objected. So it is right, there is an objection process, an appeals process, but generally most developments that should have been approved, I believe, do get approved in the end.
Ballasalla, of course, is expanding enormously with that enormous estate now, which is going to effectively be doubled. Do you think that's a good thing in that it gets it out of Douglas, or do you think Douglas, Onken and Bratton will effectively get bigger and other places may not?
I think it's important we spread it around the island, that we ensure that any growth is around the island. But what's equally important, and always been important to me personally, is we need to grow services at the same time. So this has been expressed by Peel Commissioners in relation to the new houses coming up in Peel, and it's a view I've always had great sympathy with, and I've stated in Tyward many times. If government is determined to grow the population, then we have to bite the bullet and say, right, well, if we're going to do that, what do our schools look like? What does our health service look like? What does our policing look like? And actually fund the services accordingly. We have to take a gamble and invest in developing those services. Where I live up in Governor's Hill, when that estate was built, a doctor's surgery went in, the pub went in, the shops went in, a school went in. There was a gamble taken at that time that you'd fill those houses, you'd get the community, and that's what sometimes seems to be lacking with these developments. We're not building the services at the same time, and that's putting pressure on existing services. So I very, very much, and I've said it many times in Tynwald on a personal level, and I say it again, believe that government needs to be looking strategically and saying, if we are going to grow the population, what do the services need to look like?
That's the chair of the Housing and Communities Board, David Ashford, talking to Andy on Manning Line this week. You can listen back to that, and indeed you can watch it back as well if you go to Manx Radio's YouTube if you'd like to. But yes, lots of questions came from that interview, and as ever, you can always get in touch with your thoughts, 166 177 or studio@manxradio.com if you want to email. It is 13 minutes past 5. Let's turn our attention to business with Ramsey Crookall. And is it a real solution to some of the biggest challenges facing our hospitality sector, or just another board with no real impact? This might be a question which could be on your mind following the unveiling of the new Hospitality Board at this month's government conference. What are its actual goals and how will it make a difference? Well, leading the charge is Jamie Lewis, who's chair of the board and also managing director of Extra Fancy Catering. Let's hear him now explain what this new initiative aims to achieve.
I joined the business agency board back in January, and I brought it to the board that I would like to establish a hospitality specific group, but it was really important for that to be a broad coalition of hospitality businesses. Traditionally, we've had some incredible organisations formed, but they're kind of more niched in their approach. It was really important for me that, we included everything from wet-led businesses, pubs, restaurants, bars, everything that we have and is represented to sit alongside the hotels, the accommodation providers, the tourism sector. We all have similar issues and things that will need to be addressed, and I think that the strength is in the unity of that. But for me, on a personal level, is to drive hospitality as a career choice. We have people leaving the island. I think that hospitality can offer huge advantages, and I've seen that for members of my staff. They've been able to travel around the world as part of their bartending journey. and I don't want them to see the Isle of Man as a limiting factor to that. So career development is really important to me. But, it's there in an advisory capacity to government so that, God forbid something like COVID happened again, that they have an established direct line into hospitality businesses, and all of those organisations that already exist have seats on the board as well, so that those conversations aren't happening in silo, they're happening and being brought back to the table with a direct line into government.
That is Chair of the Hospitality Board, Jamie Lewis. Now, the stock market report brought to us by Ramsey Crookall. They tell us that UK and European stocks saw a slight decline today after a volatile session as the rally driven by positive developments in China rather lost momentum. Wall Street opened on a quiet note as China's initiatives to boost its economy didn't generate much enthusiasm among investors. Today, gold surged to an unprecedented high, driven by increased expectations of a significant interest rate reduction by the US Federal Reserve, which further fueled the bullish run on bullion. Additionally, a weaker dollar enhanced the metal's attractiveness. Oil prices, meanwhile, declined as investors reconsidered the potential effectiveness of China's recent stimulus measures in revitalising its economy and increasing fuel demand, despite being the largest crude importer globally. We're looking at the commodities. Gold finished up 0.1% at $2,659. Brent stands off 0.61% at $74.61. At the close, the FTSE 100 was off 0.2% at 8,266. And a short time ago, the Dow Jones was trading off 0.33% at 42,070. And the Nasdaq was up 0.31% at 18,131.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
So first of all, the main thing to look out for on the roads tonight is the St Mark's area, which you're being asked to avoid. There was a road traffic collision there earlier this afternoon. It's closed between the Crossroads and the Clanner Road crossroads. Police say it will stay shut until at least 7 p.m, so avoid that area. Do take an alternative route. On the sailings, we know that there is a question mark over the Manxman sailing at 1945 to Heysham. It is subject to disruption or cancellation because of the weather. They haven't made a final decision on that yet. They are saying that it will be made by 6 p.m, so we will have the very latest on that in the 6 p.m. news. Other than that, though, down at the airport, everything looking pretty good.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
It's coming up to 18 minutes past 5. So here's an unusual one. Would you know how to spot an Asian hornet? Well, the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture says there have been no confirmed reports of the species over here, but it's important any sightings are reported as soon as possible. Sean Cowper has more.
The non-native species can cause issues for beekeepers and is also known to be a public health issue due to the risk of an allergic reaction to a sting from an Asian hornet. Responding to a Tynwald question from Douglas North MHK John Wannenberg, DEFRA confirmed awareness materials are being displayed around the island to ensure Manx residents can identify the hornets. Since 2018, the department has had an action plan in place to deal with the species, but says this is currently under review following recent changes to protocol. Through the British Irish Council, DEFRA liaises with those in other jurisdictions to exchange experiences, build knowledge and learn from new approaches. Through the BIC, the island receives monthly updates on confirmed sightings of priority species, which includes Asian hornets. The department says rapid response to the occurrence of a queen will be important to achieving eradication, with its officers having been trained by Jersey government in finding the hornets, and special equipment has been sourced. Anyone who spots what they believe to be an Asian hornet can contact Pest Control on 685 894.
Sean Cowper reporting there. That number again, 685 894. There is a photograph of an Asian hornet on the Manx Radio website. Basically, it's just very big. Coming up to 19.5 minutes past 5. Now, this year's annual Sight Matters Coast to Coast Walk got an incredible boost thanks to local resident Ivan Salisbury, who pledged to give £1,000 for every participant. And as a result, the charity dedicated to supporting the Isle of Man's blind and visually impaired community has received nearly £500,000 in donations. Christian caught up with Chief Executive Catherine Bradley and Marketing Lead Peter Marshall to hear more about this remarkable act of generosity and its impact on the charity.
Ivan contacted us to find out about the services that we provide, and he kept in contact, and over a period of time he looked at ways he could make a donation, and he felt that it was a good way to recognise and reward those people that took part in the Coast to Coast, and also show what a difference their participation made. To say we were blown away by the generosity and the amount of donation is probably an understatement. And we really, really do appreciate it, and also appreciate all those that actually took part in the event, because the amount is reflected in the number of participants.
Now, Ivan does have a personal connection to sight loss through his grandmother. How important is it for the charity to engage with people who have personal stories like that?
I mean, the Isle of Man's a very close-knit and small community. It's really lovely to see the impact our work has. It was Ivan's grandmother who had sight loss, and that's quite a long time ago now. And he remembered that she would give him some of her allowance, which he said she received from the church. I think that just shows what a difference there is in terms of what's available in terms of support for blind and visually impaired people. We're very thankful and very grateful that these funds will be able to help us continue the work that we do, and our charity is growing all the time, so it's important that we're able to sustain our services.
That's Marketing Lead for Sight Matters Peter Marshall, and also before that Chief Executive Catherine Bradley. What a lovely, lovely donation that was. 22 minutes past 5. Now, you might have heard us talking about this yesterday. This year's edition of Manx Lit Fest is now well and truly underway. This evening, the island's playing host to an award-winning writer, environmental activist and Professor of Contemporary Fiction at Manchester Metropolitan University. Monique Roffey will be at the Erin Arts Centre tonight from 7:30 to discuss her latest book, Passion Tide, and also how fiction is an important tool to tackle the big topics.
Passion Tide is not a climate change novel. It's about something very different. It's about femicide, which is a global phenomenon. But because I've been active in Extinction Rebellion for several years, a lot of the activism that I witnessed and took part in and even helped plan has gone into Passion Tide. But I think what fiction can do that watching Channel 4 News or News at 10 can't do is it can activate our heart and galvanise us into activism. I think too often we hear about 3 women being shot dead by a crossbow, or an athlete being burnt to death by her partner, or we see something happening in France, some terrible rape case, or we hear about what's going on in Lebanon, or we disassociate, we disconnect from all the big things that, climate change, all of the big things that are going on. And I think through fiction, the opposite happens. We actually connect. We invest. We're emotionally engaged and involved. So I think this is a really good way to get people on board.
That is author Monique Roffey, who's going to be at the Erin Arts Centre tonight from 7:30 to discuss her latest book. There are still tickets left. You can find those at the Manx Lit Fest website, so well worth going along to that. And there'll be more from Monique on Breakfast tomorrow morning. 23 and a bit minutes past 5. I was trying to be precise there, Rob Pritchard. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Good, I'm okay, thank you. Sports news, a lot happening today.
Absolutely, there's plenty happening today. Well, we're going to start with cricket, and the Isle of Man men's national cricket side have taken a fourth straight win at this year's European Cricket Championships in Spain this afternoon. At Kotama Oval in Malaga, the Manx side have beaten Estonia by 4 wickets with a final score of 140 for 6 after their opponents have been first into bat, setting a target of 137 after the full 10 overs. Well, among the standout batting displays for the Ireland squad were captain Ollie Webster and Eddie Beard, who both recorded half-centuries. And before that, there were 4 separate wicket takers, with Estonia at the crease courtesy of Matt Ansell, Kieran Court, Aki van der Berg and JJ Griffin. And the Isle of Man is heading back into action right now in its final group match in the Challenger Division up against Slovenia. Well, elsewhere, the Isle of Man under-21s netball side suffered a 78-24 defeat to United Arab Emirates in their first encounter of this week's World Youth Cup qualifiers last night. The Manx side's opening match in Cardiff began as a closely fought contest with just 5 points separating them and their opponents after the first quarter at 9-14 points-wise. However, the UAE began to assert themselves into the second, stretching their advantage going into the half-time break, at which point the Isle of Man then trailed 13-37 into the second half proceedings, and UAE continued their clinical charge to rack up 61 points heading into the last quarter compared to the Isle of Man's 18, and the Ireland squad, they managed to get 6 further points back in quarter 4 as they were unable to stem the UAE tide, with the latter emerging with an opening day victory. Well, the Isle of Man's second contest is taking place right now against Wales. That had got underway at 5 o'clock. And finally, in darts, the Isle of Man has begun its campaign at this year's WDF European Cup today in Samarin, Slovakia. Today has seen the team events take place. The men's squad of Aaron Bradley, Robert Nelson, Alan Young and John Halsall have a chance to get a consolation result on the board against Lithuania at 7:30 tonight after losses earlier today against England, Australia and Italy. Meanwhile, the women's squad of Nikki Bardsley, Margaret Kelly, Sarah Taylor and Jessica Corlett are taking on France right now after losing out in their first 2 matches against the Republic of Ireland and Hungary.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. Just to give you a reminder that the road in St Mark's is still closed. That's between the crossroads there and the Clanna Road crossroads. It's because of an earlier road traffic collision in the area, and police have told us it will be shut until at least 7 p.m. We don't have any other details about what's involved, but motorists are asked to avoid that area. So if you're heading that way, you do need to take an alternative route home. And I've just checked the latest from the steam packet. No update yet on that 1945 Manxman sailing to Heysham. It is, though, subject to possible disruption or cancellation, and that is because of the weather. We know it's not brilliant out there now. Honestly, it looks like the depths of winter looking out across Douglas Bay at the moment. There is going to be a final decision on this sailing to give it every possible chance to go ahead by 6 p.m. So we will, of course, bring you the very latest on that if you're expecting to head away this evening. Everything is crossed for you. But that is all from Update this evening. Thank you so much for joining us and for your company. Remember, you can always contact us by emailing newsroom@manxradar.com. And for more details on all tonight's top stories, just head over to the news section of the Manx Radio website. Coming up next, it is Spotlight with Howard Kane. That'll be followed by Chris Kinney, who'll be here live from 6 p.m. with Greatest Hits. Then at 9 p.m, it's Country Roads with Andy Wint. He is complete with the Stetson and the boots today, which is quite nice. And then Rhiann Evans will keep you company from 10 p.m. with After Hours. Whatever you're doing this evening, have a great one, and we will be back with you from 6 in the morning with Christy on breakfast, and I'll be here from 5 p.m. with Update tomorrow again. Take care. Bye-bye.